ask social conservatives why they're opposed to Ontario's updated sex ed curriculum, and a lot of them will come back with something like this.
If you take a look at the curriculum, what is your problem with it? What specifically do you dislike within the current health and physical education curriculum?
So first of all, the value of faith and culture was respected while constructing it. Our major concern that the curriculum was constructed by a convicted pedophile.
That's Farina Siddiqui. She's the head of the Coalition of Concerned Parents, an anti-sex ed organization. And she's repeating one of the most essential social conservative talking points about sex ed.
Ben Levin, also a former University of Toronto professor, was arrested in July of 2013 and charged with child exploitation, as well as charges of processing and accessing child pornography.
And when you have someone who's at the helm of this sort of policy, who is now facing 7 child pornography and child exploitation charges, I mean, heck, folks, if your arms aren't up in the air right now, I don't know what will get them there.
So, was the revised sex ed curriculum actually created by a convicted pedophile? The short answer is no. But the fact that this myth is still kicking around tells us a lot about the real reasons people are still upset about the sex ed curriculum.
We say no! We say no! We say no!
So, let's back up to 2015 when Kathleen Wynne's government introduced the revised curriculum. That was based on one that the McGuinty government tried to bring in 5 years earlier. And Benjamin Levin had been a deputy education minister in that Liberal government when the first draft of the sex ed curriculum was being created. And in 2013, he was in fact charged with several child porn-related offenses. So what was Levin's role at the time when the curriculum was being created? Well, as Deputy Education Minister, he was essentially in charge of the ministry's day-to-day bureaucratic work. He would have had some high-level oversight over the process that led to the updated curriculum. But government bureaucracy is big, especially in the education ministry. And for Levin to have written the specific curriculum himself, it'd be like a university president working on a first-year syllabus. So there are 2 problems with this theory. First, Levin didn't write the curriculum himself, and he wasn't even the person ultimately responsible for it. That would have been the minister. And another thing, the curriculum is pretty similar to new sex education that's being implemented in other jurisdictions like Quebec or California. But let's just pretend for a second that Levin was in fact heavily involved in writing the curriculum. So what? Some social conservatives argue that parts of the updated sex ed curriculum sexualize kids. They say that helping children understand what their body parts are called, or telling them about the existence of LGBT families, is dangerous.
My concern is with the very early grades, learning things that kids aren't ready for, learning it in a slanted way.
They think that Levin put this stuff in the curriculum so that it would be easier for pedophiles to molest children.
They will become targets for the predators amongst us.
So who do they think is behind this conspiracy? Well, it's not just pedophiles like Levin. It's also the homosexuals. And according to people like Charles McVitie, that's pretty much a distinction without a difference.
We deserve the truth about this sex education experiment.
He's the head of Canada Christian College, and he's been one of the main opponents of the sex ed curriculum in Ontario, and a big supporter of Doug Ford. The Ford government even invited him to the speech from the throne last month. And here's what McVitie had to say about gay people in 2010. Quote, "They have an insatiable appetite for sex, especially with young people. And there are not enough of them, so they want to proselytize your children and mine, our grandchildren, and turn them into homosexuals. And they've seized our Ministry of Education, and now they're implementing this." And what's McVitie's proof? Well, the Minister of Education at the time was Kathleen Wynne, who happens to be a lesbian. Quote, "Kathleen Wynne wants to impose her sexual preferences on our children." That's another quote from 2010. So fast forward to 2015. When the Wynne government said they were revising the sex ed curriculum, opponents didn't bring up homosexuality nearly as much. That's when we started hearing about, quote,
Anal sex in the classroom.
6 genders and
Sexualizes children.
And they keep coming back to
Levin.
Ben Levin.
That's just a clear dog whistle for the vast homosexual conspiracy they say is targeting Ontario. They want to convince Ontarians that queer and trans people are grooming children for sex, but they'll just never come out and say that because it's so obviously absurd. So, expect to keep hearing a lot more about Benjamin Levin instead.